Welcome back to another edition of Nexus Connexus. And today, Nexus connects us to Mel Blount. Mel has been a childhood hero of mine. He was a Pittsburgh Steelers player in the 1970s that is truly legendary for his performance on the field. Mel actually is the reason the NFL has the pass interference rules it has today, because the way that Mel played was so unique and so different from the way that anybody else had ever approached the sport that it required the NFL to change the rules specifically because of him. So you will even hear occasionally when you listen to an NFL game, sometimes they'll talk about the Mel Blount rule when it comes to pass interference. Now, I wish that the recording here with Mel was a little bit higher quality. Unfortunately, we had to do this while he was on the road and do it from his phone. But it was a great, interesting conversation about why Mel is so adamant about getting tested for sleep apnea. He has seen the effects of sleep apnea on friends and players and family members alike. And he's very interested in seeing, particularly in Black communities, how more people can be tested and how we can help solve the problem of sleep apnea. I'd really encourage you to check out Mel and the work that he's done with his foundation since he left the NFL. He is very active in a number of different charities. He holds a invitational at his place outside of Pittsburgh every year. I'm hoping to try to attend next year. And he's just a great all-around guy. I really enjoyed getting to know him, having this conversation with him. We talk a little bit about football, but mostly about dental and dental sleep apnea solutions, particularly when it comes to Nexus. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did recording it. And listen, I know I have a lot of fans and friends in the Pittsburgh area. So here we go, the famous Mel Blount. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Nexus Connexus. And today I have a very special guest from my hometown, Mel Blount, who was a five-time Pro Bowler, four-time Super Bowl champion. I attended many games as a small child right there on the sideline. So, Mel, I'm so excited to chat with you today. Thanks so much for joining me.
Hey, Derek, it's a pleasure. It's good to be on, and I'm looking forward to informative conversation about a whole lot of things, including sleep apnea.
Absolutely. Well, Mel, I mean, you had a really amazing career in the NFL, and not only influential, but you changed a lot of the rules of the game. And I remember that as a kid growing up. But since that time, I think it was, what year was your last year in the NFL? Was it 83?
I played the 83 season and retired in March of 84. Okay. In fact, Bradshaw and I were rookies together and played our whole career together. We retired the same year. And 5 years later, we went in the Hall of Fame at the same time. So he's my Hall of Fame brother, my teammate. And, it was a good journey. We had a lot of great players.
Sure did. I mean, it was very influential on my life. I actually searched around. I realized it was in my storage unit. I tried to grab my original terrible towel that my wife got from Myron Cope as a kid. I couldn't find it. It must be in storage. So I thought, well, okay, we'll be able to do that. But I'd love to hear more about what you've been working on since you left the NFL, because, you've certainly had a passion for football, but, following your story since that time, it's really incredible, the accomplishments and the things you've been involved in. We'd love to hear more about that and your passion, particularly for youth.
Well, Derek, first of all, I think it's important for the listeners to know that, I came from a very large family growing up in the South, and I'm the youngest of 11 kids. So there were 7 boys and 4 girls. And so obviously been around people all my life, coming from a large family like that. You learn to care for one another and have a great sense of love and passion for humanity. And so I saw my parents, we went to church every day, every Sunday, and then we worked in the fields. It was all about people. It was about helping people in the community and helping people's, even when I was in school. And so I've always had this passion for people and for humanity. And so it was only fitting when I got fortunate enough to get drafted by the Steelers and play in the National Football League. I would go back home to that little small town, and I had a lot of nieces and nephews who were young kids, 10, 11, 12, 13 years old. They would go into their schools, and everybody knew that I was from that little hometown, and they knew that those kids were my family members. And so when I would go home, well, they go into school and say, Uncle Mel is home. And the next thing you know, after school and on weekends, you had all these kids out there, wanting to take pictures or want you to throw the football to them or want an autograph or something. And that really was the revelation for me that, that I had a platform, and then I should do more than just sign autographs and take pictures with these kids, really start helping nurture them and making sure that we did everything to gave them an opportunity to be successful. And so out of that experience of me coming home and seeing all that and God just revealing to me that, I should get involved and do some things with these kids. That was the birth of the Mel Blount Youth Home. And what happened was, when we started working with these kids, then we started realizing that, hey, you got these kids out here on your farm. There's liability. There's all kind of exposure. And so that's when we formed an organization called the Mel Blount Youth Home. And then we started housing kids. We started housing kids out there on the farm. And the very first kid I got, there was a big fan like yourself who had seen and witnessed what had happened in Pittsburgh with those Super Bowl championships. And I had Commissioner Pete Rozelle came to Pittsburgh to a fundraiser for me to raise money to get the program started. And it was in the papers and things. So this young lady was in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, working for a juvenile judge. And she heard about what we were starting to do. And she reached out to a mother back here in Pittsburgh and said, there was a young man down there in Florida who was a good kid, just had gotten in some trouble, needed somebody to really help him and mentor him. And she said, well, there was an article in the paper about this Steeler who was starting up a program for kids. And so they got in touch with me and they told me about this kid. So I flew to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, went to the court hearing of this kid. The judge awarded me that kid. And so it was just a matter room where I grabbed the kid and embraced him. And that became our logo. And it was just, it's just amazing the journey that I've been on since I retired from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And, so it's been a lot of work. We've obviously have had a lot of ups and downs. When I say that, a lot of kids we've had in our program, they've gone back home and they've gotten back involved with gang members, and even kids that we've had to bury. We've had funerals with kids that we've had. So it hasn't been that we've batted 1,000, but we've helped a lot of kids. And if we could just continue to just help one person here and there, then I think our effort and this whole journey that we're on is going to be worth it.
Well, I'm so pleased to hear, you took the responsibility of being a role model and really extended it into who you are as an individual. And I got to thank you for that. One of my cousins played in your era, Doug Kotar. He played for the Giants, and I remember as a kid, really emulating him. Yeah, and he passed away many years ago, but just being able to see the how kids responded to him and how they wanted to be so much like him was really inspirational. And so thank you for that great work. It's so, I think, helpful to take that celebrity that you got with sports and take it into something else.
Look, the whole thing is that athletes, we do have a platform to work from, and that's just a matter of what you want to do with it. You can take it and be selfish, or you can take it and you can give control. What I wanted to do, because of my background and because of my strong family ties and my belief in strong family units, I think it's important for me to use everything I have, my resources, my time, and experience to mentor kids and just try to give them an opportunity. A lot of times just sitting and talking with kids and just sharing with them about some of the things they should be looking at and trying to do. And it never ends. It's always work out there to do it. There's always kids out there who will listen if you just take the time to talk to them.
I think that's such a great point. And that's why we came together today, is really to talk about sleep apnea and, the passion that you've had on the issue of sleep apnea. We've talked a little bit on some of the other episodes about children suffering with this disorder as well. I'd love to hear your story and your journey on how you got involved in this organization and where that passion came from.
Well, look, I just think that what Nexus Dental Systems is doing in the area of sleep apnea is just it's a perfect marriage for what we're doing with young people. They're interested in helping kids, and so are we. So it's been a great marriage. Brett Brocky and the whole crew that's involved with this effort to actually eliminate the issue of sleep apnea. And so I'm so excited to be involved. I think we have an opportunity to save a lot of lives, to change a lot of lives of people, and really do something that's going to be everlasting as far as there are so many people out there who are dealing with this issue. And so I think we're on to something, because they're concerned about young people. They're concerned about anyone who has sleep apnea. And so I think what we can do is just continue to work together. And we're just getting started. So we're excited about the future. I'm excited about the people we're involved in. And I think we're going to be able to really do some good things to really change the lives of a lot of people.
I think you're so right. I recently interviewed Sarah White, and she and I talked a lot about Reggie, about the challenges that Reggie had with sleep apnea. And one of the things that she said is, for a guy who suffered his whole life with this disorder and was still an amazing athlete, how much better of an athlete would he have been if he had actually got a decent night's sleep, at some point in his life? Sleep is a key element of being an athlete. And if you don't get it, that's a real challenge.
It's hard to imagine Reggie being much better than what he was. And,
right.
and I'm sure he probably could have. But I think it's just awesome that we have a testimony like that. Unfortunately, Reggie lost his life because of that. But, God works in mysterious ways. So I think it's an opportunity for us to have a spokesperson like Sarah White and people like myself to really bring to the forefront this whole issue of sleep apnea and make people aware that we're doing something and there's help available. Just getting that information out there, being that person, those people who are just sounding the alarm. I think it's awesome that we have someone like Sarah and someone like myself, and then the leaders, the people who are really in the trenches doing the work, the doctors that we have on board, and the leadership of people like Brett Brocky. I think we really have an opportunity to do something special.
I think you're right. And I think, in particular with kids, I can't imagine being a kid and having to be hooked up to a machine to sleep. How could you ever go camping or Boy Scouts or do any of those kind of things? And I think that's why it's so important that these dental solutions are available now, so that, lots of kids wear retainers. I mean, I played football. We always had a mouthpiece in. It's not uncommon. People are used to that. And I think that's what I appreciated so much with working with Nexus, is seeing that the solution is simple. It's not a machine plugged in with hoses. It's a much simpler solution that allow kids to be kids in the end.
Yeah, and I think what Nexus is doing too is really making people aware that, hey, you don't have to be hooked up to a machine. It's a simple solution, just getting tested, letting experts identify what the issues are, and then providing the service. So we got a lot to do as far as just the awareness part of it, but I think we have the people in place. I'm certainly going every opportunity that I get to talk about it in public, and also work with the people that we have on board to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to make people aware of it. And one of the initiatives now that we're starting is because that I went to a historical Black college. We're going to go to each and every Black college that we can to get this message out and get programs set up in place so that we can reach these students.
Yeah.
And so we got a lot of things that Derek, that we're trying to do, and I just think that we're just scratching the surface. And so I know I'm excited, and I know everybody that we're working with are excited about the opportunities.
I wholeheartedly agree. Mel, tell me a little bit about some of the other things you're involved with, because I see you've got some youth camps, you've got some things going on with the Steelers. Tell me a little bit about your passion for those other things as well, because you do have this incredible voice that, as you mentioned, even going to a historically Black college, you can walk into situations that other people can't, and people will pay attention and listen to the message that you have to deliver. I'd love to hear more about the other programs that you're involved with and the things that you're doing with youth.
Well, Derek, I'm a kind of a guy who, I don't like to toot my own horn, but there are a lot of things I don't know if you knew that I was involved in the horse industry. And so now we're putting programs in place for kids in the inner city to learn about the equine industry. There's so many jobs out there, and there's so many people that come up to me and say, "Hey, Mel, you got any kids who we can hire?" I mean, there are people, every time I'm at a horse show or in that circle of people, they're looking for people to, and these are good paying jobs, great opportunities for kids to see a whole different new world out there that they have no idea exists. And that's one of the things. I was on the phone with some community leaders today talking about what can we do to get these kids out of these inner cities and get them out into rural settings like we are now set up on a farm, and let them see a whole different world and have an opportunity to find out who they are themselves, and really come to grips with life and see life in a different form, whether it's in the form of another animal or plants or trees or whatever, so that we can kind of find a way to circumvent some of the problems that we got in these inner cities. We got kids killing each other because they have no respect for life. So if you can get them out of those inner cities and get them out so that they can see something different, then they can start to think different about who they are and about the opportunities that are out there for them. So that's one program, along with so many other things that we're trying to do to just give kids hope and to give them opportunities to better themselves.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned this because I remember as a kid growing up in the Pittsburgh area, there was a place called Round Hill Farm. And that was the funnest trip ever when your grandparents took you to Round Hill Farm, where you could see the cows and the horses and you could feed the sheep and the pigs and these kind of things. And it was just a completely different perspective, a different world that you weren't familiar with because of the area that I grew up, which wasn't a real great area to be in. And just it gave you a different passion, a different view of the world. And I think it made you realize that, to your point with the equestrian programs, it made you realize that there's other options out there. There's other things out there for you to live a robust and happy life.
Exactly. And I think exposure is so important, that kids be exposed to all these different things. Then they have choices. But when you grow up in a drug infested area and that's all you see, then you kind of become a product of your environment. So we're doing things like that. We have a big Still a Rookie Day out here, where we bring kids from all over the area to have that personal contact with these draft choices, and then for those kids to watch them grow and develop as superstars in the NFL. And we're really excited about that program. What we're trying to do now, and I mentioned it earlier in the historical Black colleges, HBCUs. Now what we want to do with Nexus Dental Systems is we want to start, my idea is every time we have all these rookies out here, that we can talk to them about what we're doing in the field of sleep apnea, and then they become voices for what we're trying to do, and spreading the word. So there's just so many things that down the road that are coming that's going to be extremely good for the people who have this disease, and also for someone like us who is trying to take it on a national level and make people aware of it, that, like you said, you don't have to be hooked up to a machine. There's a simple solution, and we have the answers for that.
Absolutely. This was great. Mel, thank you so much for your time and being here. And I'm so excited that you're on board with the folks here at Nexus. I think it just really resonates. I'm excited for this episode to come out. As a boy who grew up in Pittsburgh, I've got lots of friends that I'm sure are they'll get tested because of the impact that you have and the voice that you have, right? People will tune in because it's Mel Blount. And it's great how you're able to use that to resonate that message and get people excited about getting tested.
Hey, Derek, I appreciate the opportunity, and just know that, like I said, we're just getting started, and Nexus Dental Systems, we're here to stay, and we're gonna make a difference in the lives of a lot of people, not just in this country but around the world. So that's the mountain that we're climbing.
Thanks so much for tuning in. I think it was a really interesting conversation to have with Mel, to learn why he's so passionate about this topic and why he cares so much that people go out and get tested for sleep apnea. If you have never been tested and never had a sleep study, I would highly encourage you to check out our website, find out more, and get yourself tested. I have to tell you, directly after Reggie White's interview, I heard from some NFL friends as well as some NBA friends, and they are in the process right now of getting a sleep apnea device from Nexus Dental. They're doing that specifically because they had been diagnosed in the past, but they struggled with compliance with the machine. They just could not make it work for them. These are world-class athletes that were struggling with the dilemma of sleep apnea. And now, through Nexus, they're finding a solution. All right, make sure you tune in next time and like and subscribe as always. In the human race, and we want